Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So basically, we were done with the industrial part, right? We already covered everything. Today we'll be starting with foreign trade during British colonial period. Okay. So foreign trade. Now, ma'am, what is foreign trade? Right. Ma'am, what is foreign trade? So foreign trade is basically, for example, trade is. Now, what is trade? First of all, trade is basically when you are going to import something and export something. That is trade, right? So import. Oh my God, this is so tough with me. Okay. So, ma'am, what is import? Import is basically when you are taking something, right? And export is basically exit. You are selling something. For example, this is India, right? And if you are if you are taking something, then it is import. For example, you bought car from Russia, right? So this is import. But if you are selling your raw material to Britain, that is export. Clear? This one is clear? Import, export.
Yes.
Okay. Others? Only Hanima?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Madi? Madi, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you need to respond. Okay, be attentive in the class. Okay. So basically, a trade is basically import and export. Okay. So India's foreign trade during British colonial period. What was that? Okay. So first we'll study structure, volume, and direction of India's foreign trade during the colonial period. So what was basically the restrictive policy of commodity production, trade, and tariff. So basically, there were first, just remember, just you have to learn the terms. Restrictive policies. Restrictive policy like restrictions were there that you can produce this, you cannot produce that like this. Restrictive policies for what? Like where were the restrictions? First, commodity production. Commodity production like what you can produce. Okay. For example, I told you cannot produce food crops. You can only produce cash crops, right? So restrictive policy of commodity production plus trade, like with which country you can trade, right? With to who, which country you can sell your product, from where you can import everything. So trade. And now what is tariff? Tariff is basically the tax which you have to pay on trade. For example, you bought a car from Russia, so when you are going to import it, you have to pay some tax, right? So this is the tax on trade is known as tariff. So what is tariff? Tax on trade, right? Tax on trade is known as tariff. Okay, it's not, you don't say that I paid this much tax. No, you pay, you say that you have paid this much tariff. If you are paying tax on, there are different type of tax, direct tax and all that tax, right? So when you are going to pay tax on import and export, like basically on trade, then you are going to tell it that this is a tariff, not a tax. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So basically, what was the structure? Like there were restrictive policies. There were restriction on basically commodity production, trade, and tariff pursued by colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition, and volume. Structure, how it looked like, composition, with whom you are going to trade, and the volume, how much you are going to trade with everyone. So first, we'll see structure and composition of foreign trade. Okay. So first, you will write the hashtag. First, you'll write the heading India's foreign trade during British colonial period. Then you are going to write structure and composition of foreign trade. Okay. Okay, just write structure, volume, and direction of India's foreign trade during colonial period, right? And then write the restrictive policies. Okay, students, just first write this, then I'll tell you what to write. Just write the heading hashtag India's foreign trade during British colonial period. See, in this chapter, there are different sectors: agriculture, industries, foreign trade, demographic, occupation. So you have to make notes in such a way from agriculture. If you are covering agriculture, everything should be there in that agriculture portion. So from here onwards, foreign trade is there. So just write India's foreign trade during British colonial period. And once you are done with the heading, let me know, then I'll check.
Done, ma'am.
Others? Done?
Done.
Okay. Then you are going to write this. The restrictive policies of commodity production, just underline commodity restrictive policies, commodity production, trade and tariff pursuit means which they adopted the colonial government adversely. Adversely means like in a bad way, affected the structure, composition and volume of India's foreign trade. Okay.
Yes.
Ma'am, done.
Done.
Okay. Now we are going to discuss everything in detail like structure, composition and volume. Okay. So first we'll discuss structure and composition. Right. Then we'll discuss volume. Okay. So what was structure? Structure and composition of foreign trade. Structure means like what it looked like. So what happened? India became the exporter of primary products such as raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc. And became importer of finished good consumer like cotton and silk and woolen clothes, capital goods like light machinery produced in the factories of Britain. Okay, clear? So what was the structure? That India was exporter of primary good like raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, and India was importer of finished good like cotton, silk, woolen clothes, capital goods like machinery, which was produced in the factories of Britain. Clear? So this was the structure, right? For all practical purposes, Britain maintained a monopoly control over India's export and import. So now, basically, this is structure, right? That India was exporter of this and India was importer of this. Now this is composition, right? So in India, basically what was happening, for all practical purposes, Britain maintained a monopoly. Monopoly is basically the mono means single, right? So monopoly control over India export and import. So British was the only country which was controlling all the import and export, like this much you are going to import and this much you are going to export. So he was the only country which was controlling India's export and import, right? The opening of Suez Canal further intensified British control over India's foreign trade. So basically what was happening, like see, you can see this, right? This is Suez Canal. Okay. So what was this is India, right? And this is Europe, like the London area, the Britain used to come. So earlier, what Britishers used to do, they used to travel this long in order to, this long in order to reach there, right? But now when Suez Canal introduced, because of Suez Canal, it became shorter to come to India, right? So the opening of Suez Canal further intensified means deepened British control over India's foreign trade. For example, earlier if Britishers were taking 100 goods from India, because at the time was it was time consuming, plus the distance was very, you can say it was distance taking as well. But now earlier if they were taking 100 cotton silk or from here, now they are going to take 1,000. Why? Because they have to only cover shorter distance, right? So basically the opening of Suez Canal further intensified British control. If earlier it was 60% control, now Britishers did 90% of control on India's foreign trade. So basically this is structure and this is composition. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you will write hashtag structure and composition of foreign trade. Then you will write structure this, composition this. Clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Teacher, for structure, we'll write that full paragraph.
Yeah. Just write in your own language that India became exporter of this and this, right? Primary good or raw material. And just write India became importer of this and this. That's it. Just don't write everything. Just write in your own language because we have written this thing many times.
Done.
Done.
Done, ma'am.
Okay, good. Now, basically, volume and direction of India's foreign trade. Okay, so volume is basically how much trade we were doing, 80%, 20%, 30%, right? And next one is direction. Direction means with whom we were doing trade, right? So, volume and direction of Indian foreign trade, more than 50% of Indians foreign trade was restricted to Britain. Like more than 50% we were doing, Indians were doing trade with only Britain, while the remaining 20-30% was allowed with few countries like China. Ceylon is basically the previous name of Sri Lanka, so you're going to write Sri Lanka, and Persia. Okay, Persia is basically the older name. It is now Iran. Okay, so what was happening? Coming to volume and direction, 50% of India's foreign trade were restricted to Britain, and remaining 20-30% they were only allowed to trade with three countries. First is China, second is Sri Lanka, and third is Iran. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So you'll write hashtag volume and direction of India's foreign trade. Then this more than 50% was this, and rest was with these three countries.
Done, ma'am.
Done.
Okay. Madhi done?
No, ma'am, just a minute.
Okay.
Ma'am, done.
Okay. So now, so basically what happened? Now, because of all this, what was happening? See, if a country is earning money, right? So it is, oh, so sorry. Okay, if a country is earning something, it's because of the trade, right? But what was happening? There was a drain of Indians' wealth during colonial period. So, ma'am, how can you say drain of Indian wealth? Drain is basically reduction in wealth. For example, if you are earning 100 rupees and now you have only 10 rupees with you. So basically, this is drain, right? So drain of India's wealth during colonial period. So ma'am, how come you can say this? There is a drain, right? The most important characteristics of India's foreign trade throughout the colonial period was the generation of large export surplus, right? There was large export surplus. See, earlier Britishers were taking 100 kg of wood, but now because of Suez Canal and other facilities, they were taking 100 kg. So export is high, right? So because of this, the money which will be coming to us, it will be high, right? So that means our economy should be increasing, right? But this export surplus came at a huge cost of country's economy. So instead of getting lot of money, right, there was no improvement in Indian economy. How? Several essential commodities like food grains, clothes, kerosene, etc. were scarcely available in domestic market. Why there was like domestic market is basically within India, right? We were exporting all this clothes, food grains and all that. But raw material we were exporting, but whatever we were getting from foreign trade for like from British, it was not enough, right? So there was always the scarcity, always there was these food like food grains, clothes, kerosene and oil and all that. They were always very limited in our Indian economy, right? And furthermore, this export surplus means this large amount of export did not result in any flow of gold or silver into India. Rather, this was used to make payment for the expenses incurred by office set up by the colonial government in Britain. Now, what was happening? See, earlier it was 10, now it is 1000 rupees, right? So, of course, the money we are getting from export is really high, right? But the money which Indians were earning from the export, what Britishers was doing, Britishers were using that money to make payment for the expenses incurred by office set by colonial parents. See, in India there were offices of Britishers, right? So basically they were using this money to make payment. For example, paying rent, paying electricity bill, paying water bill, and all that. Okay. Plus, whatever war they were fighting, they were using this money in their war expenses as well, like buying new weapons, in the in making up practices and all that. And next, all the import of invisible items, they used to import lots of things. So when you are importing something, you have to pay tax, right? So in that also they were using Indian money, all of which led to drain of India's wealth. Okay, Indian wealth. So what was happening basically, because of foreign trade, see, because of foreign trade, every economy increases, every economy grows, right? But in India, it was opposite. India's wealth started basically decline, or basically started draining. So ma'am, how can you say that? How can we say that? First thing is that, first indication is that several essential commodities we were exporting, importing, there are lots of money, but still the basic commodities like food grains, clothes, kerosene, all that, they were not available in our market. People used to suffer a lot to get clothes, people used to suffer a lot for kerosene oil and all that. And next, whatever money was coming from export, Britishers were using that money for their own purposes, like they were using the money for office setup, they were using the money for expenses on war, they were using that money for use import, paying tariff and all that. That's why because of that, there was a drain of Indian wealth. Clear,
Yes.
everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So now basically what you will be writing question, just write it down. Instead of export surplus, instead of export surplus, how can you say that there was a drain of Indian wealth? Instead of export surplus, how can you say that, or how can you say that there was a drain of Indian wealth during colonial period? Okay. Done. How can you say that there was drain of Indian wealth during the colonial period? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And just write or. Just write one more question after this. how can you say that export surplus, how can you say that export surplus came at a huge cost of country's economy? Okay, this is the question. How can you say that export surplus came at the huge cost of Indian or Indian country's economy, not Indian economy?
Done.
Done.
Madhi done?
No, ma'am, just a minute.
Okay, I'm just repeating it. Second question is, how can you say that export surplus came at a huge cost of, don't write country, write India's economy?
Done, ma'am.
Okay. So you can see from here you will be write first point, several essential this and this entire thing. Okay. First point and second. Students just write till here. Okay. Then I'll just tell you.
Done.
Done, ma'am.
Done.
Everyone done?
Yes.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Halima done?
Yes. Done.
Oh. Now we are going to write few points about Suez Canal. Okay. So now, ma'am, what is Suez Canal and what are like just a few lines? Trade through Suez Canal. So Suez Canal is an artificial waterway running from north to south across Isthmus of Suez, and you just don't have to write all this thing. This is basically what is Suez Canal. It is an artificial waterway. Why it is artificial? Because some routes are natural. Okay, but this is human made. That's why it is known as artificial. Okay. So basically, it connects Port Said, Mediterranean Sea, and Gulf of Suez and arm of Red Sea. Okay, so this is what you just have to remember. One thing over here. First, Suez Canal is an artificial waterway, and second, you have to write its opening in 1869 reduces the cost of transportation and made access to the Indian market easier. Clear? So basically what happened, it was opened in 1869 and it reduces the cost of transportation. Earlier what was happening, this is India, this is Britain. So they were trading it over here. Right, so the cost was very high because you have to cover large distance, long distance, but now they were easily coming here. So you have to cover short distance. So transportation cost will be easy, like less. Right. So what happened? It's opening in 1861. So question will be direct, when Suez Canal opened. Okay. So it opened in 1869 and it reduced the cost of transportation and made access to Indian market easier. Now easily people can access it. Like you can have that access control over the market easy. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So just write hashtag Suez Canal and just write 2 points. First, Suez Canal is an artificial waterway, and second, it's opening this one.
Done.
I'm done.
Done.
Done? Halima?
Yes, done.
So now basically we are going to do just a minute. Okay. So now we are going to do the demographic condition of during the colonial period, right? So now, ma'am, what is demographic? What is demographic condition, right? So what is demographic? First, the question is, ma'am, what is demographic, right? So demographic is basically, for example, birth rate, death rate, and all that. It is demograph, right? Like the data related to population. Demograph is basically population, right? So whenever you will be getting demographic, that means population, right? So there can be data like how many, like what is the birth rate of population, what is the death rate, what is the literacy rate, what is infant mortality rate, everything, right? So demographic is basically related to population, data related to population. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So various details about population of British India were collected through the census. So first time when a census was conducted in India, census is basically, it is a method through which we can, find out the data of population. So this is known as census. Okay. So census in 1881, right? It revealed the unevenness in India's population growth. Subsequently, operations was carried out before 1921. India's was in first stage of demographic transition. The second stage of transition began in 1921. Oh my God, ma'am, what you said, we didn't get anything, right? So I'll just explain you. Okay. So you just have to remember this. When we talk about population, we have three stages. One, 2, and 3. This is your first stage, this is your second stage, and this is your third stage. Okay. So basically, when we'll be talking about population, you just have to remember two things. First is BR, which is your birth rate, and second is your DR, which is your death rate. Clear? So in the first stage, both birth rate is basically how many people are taking birth, right? And death rate is how many people are being died. Okay. So now what is happening over here? In the first stage, birth rate was high plus death rate was high. Birth rate will represent with dot dot dot, death rate a straight line. So birth rate and death rate both were high, right? Both were high. Why? Because nobody was aware of family planning. Nobody know that small family is happy family. There was no policies related to family planning and all that. So birth rate was high, right? Plus death rate. Death rate was also high. Why? Because for example, if you fell ill, there was no treatment. There was no medical facility. So once you fell ill, that means you are going to die, right? So both birth rate and death rate was high, right? Now coming to second stage, what happened? Death rate came down, but birth rate remained high, right? So why death rate death rate now death rate basically came down, but birth rate remained high. Why? Because now medical facilities were there. Introduction of medical facilities took place. Now, if you fell ill, of course, there are various treatment for that, right? So basically what happened, birth rate remained high. There was no family planning, nothing. But yeah, because of some medical facilities, death rate started coming down, right? Coming to third stage, both birth rate and death rate came down. Why? Because now people are aware of family planning. Now people know various ways to control population. Plus, coming to death rate, now more medical facilities are there. So now there are high chances. The life expectancy is very much high, right? So these are the three stages. In very first stage, both birth rate and death rate are high. In second stage, death rate came down because medical facilities was introduced, but birth rate remained high. In third stage, both birth rate and death rate they came down because medical facilities are there and now people are educated. People know about family planning and there are various methods to control population as well, right? So this is the demographic structure, or you can say demographic transition. Clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now just go through it. Then one by one, everyone will explain me. First, Mahdi will explain me. Second, Sanya, and third, Halima. Okay. I'm just giving you 1 minute. You will explain me like this. I'm just explaining. Ma'am, basically in demographic transition, we have three stages. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Okay. In stage 1, both birth rate and death rate were high. Why? Why birth rate was high? Because people were not aware of family planning and all that. There was no education. People were not educated. And death rate was high because there was no medical facilities available. In second stage, death rate came down, but birth rate remained high. Why? Because people are not educated at all now also, but death rate came down because now there are few medical facilities available to people, right? And coming to third stage, both birth rate and death rate they came down because now people are educated, people have information related to family planning, plus there are various methods to control population. Why death rate came down? Ma'am, death rate came down because now there are good medical facilities with people. So once you fall sick, you are not going to die. There are high chances that your life will be saved because there are various operations, various treatment through which your life can be saved. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm just giving you 1 minute. You can prepare and then we'll start with Mahdi. Done? Should we start, Mahdi? Mahdi, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are
Okay,
clear.
Okay, you can explain.
Ma'am, birth rate increases due to.
No. You have to explain me, ma'am. In demographic transition, we
Oh,
have three stages. First, second, third. In first stages, this happens. In second stage, this. And in third, this. And the reasons.
in demographic
Transition.
transaction, the birth rate increases because.
In
Uh,
demographic transition, we have three stages.
oh, in demographic transaction, we have three stages. The birth rate,
In
the
first stage,
in first stage, birth rate, um, the birth rate increases due to literacy, increase in literacy rate. Then uh, uh,
okay. And what about death rate?
the death rate decreases due to better.
Madhi, can you see my screen?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
what I have written over here?
Ma'am, this is increasing.
Both are increasing. Birth rate is increasing plus death rate is increasing.
Uh, the death rate is increasing due to
Why people die? Because they have good medical facilities.
due to improper medical
Medical?
facilities.
Yes. Yes.
And
And why there is high population? Because people are not educated. They don't know that they don't know about family planning and all that. So people are not educated at all. That's why birth rate is high, right? Yes, no,
yeah,
maybe.
and
Second,
the death rate is ma'am, in, uh, this
decreasing.
decreasing
Why?
due to better medical facilities.
Good. And what about birth rate?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Birth rate remained high,
Yeah,
right? Why?
because in ma'am, because it's due to proper education and due to
Due to improper education. People were not educated.
like they
See,
have that mindset, like especially the uh,
yeah, they used to believe in that if we have large
ma'am,
family,
can I
then large,
explain in my own way?
yeah. So basically, why there was that birth
Ma'am,
rate was
the
high?
birth rate increases. Example, in rural areas,
Hmm.
people won't have much knowledge about
Family
uh,
planning and all. Can you hear me? Yeah, in rural areas, basically people don't have education related to family planning and all that, and they are less educated, right? So that's why the birth rate was high. There was no control in population. Clear? Madhi, am I audible? Madhi, Madhi, you are not audible. Madhi always has network issues. Okay, now Sanya. Okay, Sanya,
ma'am, I'm
just
so sorry, my net.
yeah, I can understand that you suddenly left. Okay,
Ma'am,
Madhi.
can
So
you hear
now
me?
you have to explain me the third stage. Madhi, can you hear me? Okay, Madhi, no, not an issue. Okay, so Sanya, you can explain me now.
Okay, ma'am. In demographic transactions, there are three stages. In the first one, birth rate and death rate is high. Birth rate is high because there was improper education, and Death rate is high because there was no medical facilities. Then
Okay, good.
in the second stage, death rate is high. No, birth rate is high and death rate is low because there was still no
Lack of education.
improper education and death
People were
rate.
not aware of family planning and all that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And decrease in death rate because there were some medical facilities that came up. Then in the third stage, birth rate and death rate is low because birth rate is low because there was proper education about control, population control, and then death rate is decreased because there was medical facilities, proper medical facilities.
Yes, very good, sir. Good. Okay, now Halima.
In demographic transactions, there are three stages. In the first stage, birth rate and death rate both are high.
Yes, very good. Why birth rate was high? Why death rate was low?
Birth rate is
Sorry.
high. Birth rate is high because people were not literate enough to make family plannings, and death rate was high in first stage because there were not proper health care. In second stage, death rate was low because proper health care existed, so death rate began to reduce, and birth rate is high. In third stage, birth rate reduced because of literacy rates. So people are educated, and that's why birth rate is low.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Okay. So good. Both Halima, Sana, and Mahdi. Mahdi is back. Okay. So now basically this is demographic transition, right? So you just have to remember this date 1921. Okay. Before 1921, India was in first stage, and after 1921, India was in second stage. Clear?
Yes.
So now you are going to write the heading demographic. Okay, just let me share. Demographic structure. You just give demographic India's demographic condition during colonial period. Just write it down. Done?
Yes.
Mahdi and Sana, Alima.
Yes, done.
Okay. After that, just write stages of demographic transition. Right? Stages of demographic transition. Stages of demographic transition.
Done.
Okay. So now then, what you are going to write? You are going to write this. First of all, you'll draw it. Okay. First of all, you'll draw it like this, like the diagram over here. First two like this, and over here you'll mark this is birth rate and this is death rate. And death rate came down, but birth rate was high. And similarly, birth rate came down and death rate was already slow. Like this, you'll draw this. You'll write first stage, second stage, and third stage. Okay, and then first stage, you can write it over here as well, not an issue. Clear? And after that, you'll make your own notes. First stage, what was happening? Birth rate high, death rate high. Reason you'll write. Okay, and then Second stage, birth rate high, death rate came down. Reason. After that, you'll write reason. Then third stage, birth rate and death rate both came down. Reason. Okay, so first draw this. Okay, just draw this like this, Just draw 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, and after that, just draw. Just write over here. Birth rate is represented by dot dot lines, and death rate is represented by a straight line. Clear? Just draw it, and once you draw it, let me know. Then I'll just tell you.
Done.
Done.
Okay. So basically, this is the thing, and this is. I'll just erase it. So how you're going to write it? You are going to write it like this. First stage, or you can write like this. First stage. This is your homework. Okay, first you'll write like birth rate. Just draw the arrow. High. Death rate. High. Then you'll write why birth rate was high. Birth rate was as like this. Birth rate was high because there was lack of education. People were not aware of the family planning. This word you have to use. Okay, family planning. Right, family planning. And why death rate was high? Because there was no medical facilities available. Similarly, second stage and similarly third stage. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is your homework. You're going to write it on from your end.